Okay, that's better. We talked about the descriptions of the lines, whether it rises, whether it falls, whether it's horizontal or vertical. Talked about okay, no, and Hooyvux. Remember all that? Yes? All right, cool, good. So now we're going to talk about parallel and perpendicular lines. What does parallel mean? You guys came from geometry. If two lines are parallel, how would you describe that? Rachel?
They never cross.
Yeah, they never intersect. We can write that down. If two lines are parallel, we can say that they never intersect. Okay, so how are we going to tell if lines are parallel based on their slope? Well, when we look at their slope, they are going to have the same slope. So the lines are parallel if and only if they have the same slope. So if you get 1/2 for one line and you get 1/2 for the other line, that's the same slope. They're going to be parallel, right? And that's what they might look like. Okay, just an example for you. Parallel lines have the same slope. Someone tell me what it means for lines to be perpendicular. What's happening here in your picture? Yeah, Piper. Yes, exactly. Good job. They intersect to form a right angle. I abbreviated there. Do you guys remember that from geometry? Parallel, they never intersect. Perpendicular, they intersect to form that right angle. Okay, so here we go. This one's kind of loaded. The lines are perpendicular if and only if their slopes are negative reciprocals of each other. We can say negative or opposite reciprocals of each other. I use both, okay? Can someone tell me what the word reciprocal means? I think we've already talked about that this year. Someone was asking about it. What does it mean? How do you find the reciprocal, Madison?
Does it like flip the fraction?
It does. Good job. Now, what's the opposite of a positive number? Okay, and what's the opposite of a negative number? Right. So my two slopes, one has to be positive and one has to be negative, and then the fractions have to be the flipped version. Okay, so I'll give you some examples. Here's one. What is the opposite reciprocal of 1/2? Veda? 2/1. What about that is the reciprocal, Veda. You're right. What about the opposite reciprocal? When I say opposite, I'm talking about the signs. If that's positive, it's not going to be a positive 2/1, but a... Exactly. Good job. Or you can write that as just negative 2. But you're right. You flipped it, so it became 2/1, and then you have to make it negative. Now, I threw something else in there that I want to talk about. I said the product of opposite reciprocals is -1. What operation am I talking about when I say product? Do you know, Macy? Multiplication. So, remember how we multiplied fractions a couple of weeks ago? We just go straight across. You multiply your numerators and then you multiply your denominators. So 1 times 2 gets me 2. 2 times 1 also gets me 2. And one of those was negative. What does that simplify to? Yeah? -1. Good job. So a couple of different ways you can look at this. One has to be positive and one has to be negative for them to be opposite. The reciprocals, they have to be the flipped fraction, okay? If it's a whole number like -2, you assume that's -2/1. So that 1 in the denominator now becomes your numerator, okay? Or you can multiply them. You have a calculator. You can do it by hand, whatever, and get -1 as the product of those opposite reciprocals. What if you got +1? Would they be opposite reciprocals of each other? No. You have to multiply them to get -1. Are you with me? Okay. So, if my slopes are the same, then they are going to be parallel. If they are opposite or negative reciprocals of each other, they are going to be perpendicular. So, here we go. We have a couple of examples. All we're doing is we're telling whether the lines are parallel, perpendicular, or neither. Okay? So, remember yesterday we used that formula? I want you to write it down at the top of your page. Does anybody remember it without looking at it? Ryan?
F equals y2 minus y1 over x2 minus x1.
You got it. Good job. And so here's the first example. So I'm giving you two lines. Okay, line 1 and line 2. Line 1 goes through these 2 points. So what did I want you to do what did we do with those 2 points yesterday before we started plugging things in? What were we doing yesterday with these 2 points, Ada?
We put the x1, y1, x2, y2.
Exactly. Good job. Put some labels on it so you know where you're plugging what number. Good job. So remember, the first points are always written as x, y. So this is x1, y1, because that is our first point, 1. Okay? And then the second point, you can call that x2, y2. So plug all of that into our formula for slope. Anybody want to tell me what that looks like? Tegan, go. Let's plug him in first, and then you can give me the answer.
So I did -1 minus 3.
Good.
Or 3 minus -3.
Okay.
And then for my answer, I got -4 over 6.
Good. What happens when you subtract a negative?
You add it.
Good job. And do we like that as a final answer?
No.
Can it be simplified?
Yeah.
Good job. Girls, if you have this in your calculator, press math, enter, enter, and it'll give you the simplest form. Madison, does yours automatically give you like a fraction and a decimal? There you go then. You don't have to press math, enter, enter. Okay, there you go. -2/3. We good on that? All right, do the next one. Put your labels, x1, y1, x2, y2. And then plug it in. Shani, what'd you do?
I did n equals 3 minus -3.
Good.
Over 2 minus -2.
Yeah,
And I got 6 over 4.
sweet. Can you simplify that?
2 over 3.
Oh,
3 over 2.
there you go. Good job. Always, always, always simplify your fractions, okay? So what are your thoughts about this? We have that last question to answer. We found the slope of each line. Now we need to use the slope to figure out if they're parallel, perpendicular, or neither. Parallel would be the same slope, so obviously not, right? Emma, what are your thoughts? Okay, why? Or how'd you know that?
They're negative opposites.
Okay, one's positive, one's negative, and then 2/3 and 3/2, those are reciprocals of each other. Good job. Girls, you have a calculator. If you were to type both of these in your calculator and multiply them, you will get -1. Okay, just use parentheses because they're fractions. You with me? Yes? Okay. So those two lines were perpendicular. Why don't you go through and work the next example and we'll talk about it. And then we have 2 more things to think about. And then I'll let you, actually we have a learning check to do. Let's see what you can get. is, careful here. There you go. Good job, there. Okay, I know I definitely saw everybody get -5/3 for the first one. Do we agree with that? Yeah? Okay. What was your slope for the second one? What did you plug in and what did that simplify to? Tegan.
I did -2 -1
Good. Be careful with the negatives. Oh, and I messed that up. There we go. -1 minus a -4. Okay, sweet. So what do you have to say about that, Tegan? What do you know about those lines? Yeah, that was the same slope. See that? So we call those parallel lines. All right. How about give me a few examples of slopes that would be neither parallel nor perpendicular? Give me something that's not parallel or perpendicular to 1/2. Yeah, T? 2/1 or 2. Now that's the reciprocal, but it's not the opposite reciprocal. You're right, good job. There's an example. What if I had like -4/3 and 5? Are those opposite reciprocals of each other? Are those the same numbers? No, so that's when we would say it was neither. When it's not the same number and they're not opposite reciprocals of each other. Are you with me? Yes? Okay, so just be on the lookout for that. All right, yesterday we talked about Hoibucks. Would the lines with slopes of 0 and undefined be parallel, perpendicular, or neither? Let's think about this. What kind of line, look over there at Hoibucks. What kind of line has a 0 slope? Tegan? Okay, horizontal, right? What kind of line, Tegan, has an undefined slope? Vertical. All right. Now, these two are not opposite reciprocals of each other, right? But they are always going to be perpendicular lines. Okay, so I want you to write that down. I want you to write that this one's going to be a horizontal line. And that this one's going to be a vertical line. And then they are always perpendicular. This is the only time when they won't be opposite reciprocals of each other. So remember yesterday we were getting answers for 0, like 0/5, and then I told you to put it in your calculator and you got 0, okay? And then you might have gotten something, God bless you, like 3/0, and you put that in your calculator. What did you get when you put that in your calculator? It didn't tell you undefined, it told you there was an error, right? Now, you're like, well, those aren't opposite reciprocals of each other. Yes, I know, I understand that, but always, 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 horizontal and vertical lines, if they have a slope of 0 and undefined, they are always going to be perpendicular. They're never going to be parallel. 2 vertical lines will always be parallel. 2 horizontal lines will always be parallel. These will always be perpendicular. Are you with me? Yes? Okay. So we have like 20 minutes left of class. I am going to give you this quick learning check over the last 2 days of notes. Just like the last one we took, try to work through it as much as you can without your notes, okay? And then if you need to pull your notes out, especially from day 1 to give me the reasons, I'm okay with that, okay? All right, so I want you to work on this, and then you can finish the homework. When you are done with this, it goes in the tray. You guys are on top. Okay? Ready, set, go? Let me know if you have any questions, and make sure you read directions too. No, I grade it, but it's not like a grade in Power School. It's like a formative assessment, so I'm just like trying to see like where they're at. Uh-huh.